Welcome to the Ayn Rand Fan Club. I'm Scott Schiff along with William Swig, and we've got Sonny Loman back with us. How are you both?
I'm doing
Fine,
well. How are you?
thanks.
Good, good. There's lots to talk about, but we'd be remiss if we did not at least spend an episode talking about what's going on in Iran and even the splits among different people in Ayn Rand fandom. We'll be
Right.
getting into some clips of that. Go ahead, William.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a brief introduction and help motivate people to listen to the length of this podcast because we are going to be talking about what has built up to the war, what some of the recent events that have been going on, and then we're going to give our take on what some objectivists have been saying about the war, and we're going to give Scott and I are in favor of the war, so we're going to be talking about that, and then Sunny is against the war. She's going to be talking about her position.
Two against
Uh,
one.
yeah. So, but we're all friends here, and we're going to keep it friendly and just have a general discussion. And so, just to give some context, recently we're here in March 2026, and the United States has, and along with Israel, has been attacking Iran. This has, of course, been a long-standing conflict going back decades. Some go back even further than 1979, which was, when the Iranian students seized the U.S. embassy in Tehran. More recent events included the U.S. bombing the heck out of Iran. And we finally started attacking the country itself. We've been kind of picking at their leaders, knocking out, Soleimani in 2020. But recently we've just been bombing them and attacking them. And they have been retaliating by sending missiles and drones to various bases that we have in the Middle East and attacking Israel. So some of the other things we did was we attacked their navy. So we're not only attacking their army bases, but we also sank a lot of their ships. And there's now a conflict going on over the Strait of Hormuz and the shipping lanes. So we've bombed Karg Island, which is where Iranian oil is shipped out of. And they have been attacking some oil freighters with their drones. I also wanted to just give a basic definition of war because I think it's going to be important for context here, since we are, coming up with a philosophy for war and whether this is a proper war with Iran. I just want to give the dictionary definition, which I got from my American Heritage College Dictionary, and it says a state of open armed conflict between nations, states, or parties. And I think that's a decent, pretty good definition. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys if anyone wants to begin.
I would add a few more facts. Isn't the Strait of Hormuz closed right now? So, I mean, that is a fact, and that's affecting everything. There's been 200 U.S. casualties. Most of those, I think, are just minor injuries, but let's see, how many Americans? 13 are dead. So there is those are the facts of the cost.
Yeah,
And I think it's not just our bases in the Gulf countries, but they've actually attacked some of the Gulf countries' assets as well.
that's all true. And we're going to get into that. I thought we'd start with a clip of Elan Journo and Ben Baer talking about Iran from the Ayn Rand Institute's perspective. And in this clip, Elan Journo applauds the action.
I applaud this action. I think it's a necessary one. It serves America's self-interest. It serves to protect Americans' lives and property and future from Iranian attacks and menacing. Iran is a really dangerous and evil regime, and it needs to go. I'm not here to defend the justification that the Trump administration has given. It's not yet clear what that is. But I just want to say something connected to what you brought up in the framing of the question, which is we being very critical. I'm the farthest thing from a fan of Donald Trump. But I think on this, he's taking the right action. And he said something which I think was interesting. He said a lot of people are opposing it because he's doing it as opposed to somebody else. And I think there's something right about that he's picking up on. There's a kind of tribal atmosphere in which if Trump did something and he's the wrong tribe, you oppose it. If it's someone from your tribe, you endorse it. That's not at all the right way to think about these issues.
I mean, right off the bat, I'm upset because I distinctly remember people from the Ayn Rand Institute saying that when Donald Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, that it was bad because he didn't do it for the right reasons. And I mean, these guys, this is the very first time of all the things that have happened in both Trump administrations. This is the very first time that I've heard anyone from ARI actually agree with anything he's ever done. And it took bombing another country to get them to be like, yeah, that was good. But we don't know, we're not because of why he wants to do it, but we're just saying it's good.
Well, taking out Iran was a peak-off position from, the 90s, from even before 9/11. And even when Iran became part of the axis of evil. So in a way, I mean, they're being somewhat consistent about that, and the current leadership supports it.
But this is the only time that they've been consistent, when it comes to Trump.
I think,
and for them to be like now, yeah, it's very tribal to have TDS. You think? I mean, yes, I mean, we've been saying that for like 9 years now, 8 years now.
It is a pretty fundamental or basic point that he's making. Obviously, it's not proper to be tribal or tribalistic when considering these issues. But this is something he has to say, I think, because a lot of people that he talks to or who are in his audience don't get it. He recognizes now that there's a lot of TDS out there, and so I think this is his attempt to persuade some people in the ARI audience that they're acting irrationally. And
he's right.
And so I like what he's doing. I generally like his take. I still think that there are some issues with his overall statement, which we're not really going to go into here because we're going to discuss it with other clips from other people. But
I thought he was really good. And
but basically he's showing that you don't have to be a fan of Donald Trump to understand that this is the right move. If you agree with, the war, with attacking Iran. So I like that aspect of it.
I think he also is making the point that whatever Trump's reasons are, that, I mean, I don't know if this is true. I don't know what you guys think about this, but shouldn't we require our leaders to have good reasons before going into a war unilaterally? And if his reasons are bad reasons, then we're not going to get the outcome. Even if you're pro this war, you're not going to get the outcome you want if he has different reasons, because he'll have different goals.
Yeah, I don't take the outlook that he, has bad plans for it. Some of the ARI people, they say, well, even if, as long as the theocracy's gone, that's fine. But I think, contrary to what Yaron Brook and some others think, Trump has had a strategy. He's had 4 years to think about how he wants to make things better. And this didn't really happen in a vacuum. This is on the heels of Venezuela and now Cuba. And, to some extent, with Greenland and Canada, he sees the world as kind of regionalizing. And at least with Iran and Venezuela, I think it's more about having control over the crucial regions. And even if we end up taking control of the Straits of Hormuz, it's the type of thing where he's going to have a shutoff valve on China's oil that didn't exist before, like when they threatened our medical supplies during COVID. So
I agree with all that. I think that there is some regional strategy going on here. But also, one aspect of what Elan said that I don't like is that he just sort of makes this assumption that Trump doesn't have this strategy, or he hasn't given reasons. I don't know if you listened to the speech he gave right after we started attacking Iran, but he gave a very good speech that sounded almost like he had listened to Leonard Peikoff. He gave a litany, or he talked about all of the attacks Iran had done on the West, Israel, and the United States, the Beirut bombing, the embassy hostage taking. He gave all this historical information about the context, and he also made it clear that they are anti-civilization. They're attacking the West. They're attacking reason. They're a fundamentalist religious group that's out to attack the rational, objective West. And, I think that was a very good speech. And I don't think that ARI should be glossing over it or even evading it. I think they should accept or acknowledge that that speech happened and that Trump does give reasons. And also they should recognize that Trump is not forming the strategy himself. He probably didn't even come up with the strategy. He has generals. We have a whole general staff of military leaders who come up with these strategies, these plans. They've been probably discussing this for decades. And I wouldn't be surprised, if it's been going on before 1979. And also they've been talking to Israel about it, obviously. They've been coordinating with Israel and probably other nations as well. It sounds like he talked to NATO nations and they weren't on board with it at first. So a lot has been going on in behind our backs. We don't have all the facts. And we shouldn't have all the facts. We should have some of them. He should lay out the general plan or general strategy, but not military plans. We shouldn't be giving away anything to Iran or the enemy about movements. So, I just don't buy it. I don't buy the idea that there's no strategy or plan.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, before we kind of expand our positions, we have another clip of two people debating within the objectivist world. It's Mark Pellegrino of the American Capitalist Party. He debated Razi Ginzberg from the Ayn Rand Centre UK. And in this clip, Mark seems to agree with toppling Iran personally, but yet not as chair of the American Capitalist Party.
Posted an official statement from the Capitalist Party, which I primarily authored, which sticks to the principle of enumerated powers and the strict limitations on the executive, because we think that despite my agreement with the war and the morality of the war, I do think Iran has a long list of crimes that they have committed against the United States citizens, of course, and other citizens of the world. It's probably a conflict that should have been engaged in from 1979 on. Our dereliction of responsibility to the American public has increased Iranian stature to such a degree that now this conflict is finally happening. But we do believe that in the interest of protecting American liberties and in restraining the power of an executive, particularly this executive, who has a habit of tossing the Constitution away, and in the interest of being a nation of laws, not men, I subordinate my feelings about this to constitutional processes, which I think preserve the liberties of the people.
Well, what I find interesting about that is the conflict within Mark's soul. He has his feelings on the war. He says he agrees with it, and he can name like the long list of atrocities Iran has committed. And, he thinks this is a good war, and we should have probably been doing it since 1979, apparently, in his opinion. And yet he subordinates those feelings to his whatever political platform he came up with, which is against the war in the name of curtailing the executive power and protecting our liberties. My question is, why is there this conflict between his personal philosophy and his political philosophy?
He founded it.
He founded this political party. Why is he writing the document or the opinion for a political party that he disagrees with?
Do you know what go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, go ahead, interrupt. I was just going to.
what it sort of sounds like to me is that he actually is pandering to the objective sphere of pro-war people, but he really doesn't think that we should be at war with Iran. And he is just like, well, I feel like I understand you guys and I feel the same. However, so because I think you're right. I think that his feelings should mirror his political ideas.
What I think is really happening here is that he's using his pro-war stance, or he's justifying his pro-war stance with emotions so that he can later reject it and say, oh, that's just my emotionalism acting up again. When I think about it reasonably, I'm really
Yeah.
anti-war.
Yeah, he's making a case against it.
So it'll be easier for him in the end to reject his personal view. And like you say, so he's just virtue signaling to us.
That was going to be my whole argument. I was going to say you guys are just emotional.
Now, this doesn't apply to Sonny, but among never Trumpers, I've noticed like these archetypes. You can put it with George Will, who has basically been in support of the war, which is, that's kind of where ARI and Razi are. And yet then you've got the people that are just, because it's Trump, like Bill Kristol. He was mocked on social media because he was like calling for Trump a few months ago to help the Iranian people. And, and then when they do, he's like, oh, we've got to, get this Congress has to stop him. And it's just like, there is no hierarchy of values. Being against Trump is the value. And, for all that, what I take from that is that Mark is not necessarily the main driving force in the American Capitalist Party. I mean, his co-chair, Michael Liebowitz, is someone who is, he doesn't have this conflict between his personal and the war, and we'll see that in a few minutes in clips. But it just gets into where when you have this conflict between the party you founded, and they invoke principle all the time about, oh, we're so principled and that's why we can't do this. I mean, I found clips of Mark during Ukraine talking about smashing Putin. I don't know if he meant with a congressional declaration of war first, but between that and the fact that their party doesn't actually run candidates. And so it's real easy to be perfect and principled until you actually start dealing with people in the real world making political decisions.
Well, wasn't Razi's response to that? Are you going to play that?
Yeah.
Because I think yeah.
We can play that right now.
Yeah, so just to point out again, I'm not advocating for pragmatism. I am advocating for a principled approach. We disagree on what the starting point for the principle is. Mine is reality. And from this statement, the American Capitalist Party starting point is the Constitution, which is not the right starting point. If the Constitution, in this situation, America needs to fight back against Iran and has needed to for 47 years.
All the more reason for approval.
So if the correct interpretation of the Constitution is that this war shouldn't happen, this war should still happen, and the Constitution should be amended if and when that happens. Another point, just that you made a point about the War Powers Act. That's and forever wars. The War Powers Act is from 1973. Forever wars started from Korea. The reason it started is because for some reason after World War II, and you can see that in the approach in the Nuremberg trials, the West has decided that specific acts, are what's important in a war rather than the idea.
What he's saying is, and it wasn't the clip I thought you were going to play, but he basically answered, hey, the Constitution isn't a suicide pact. Reality trumps the Constitution. And if reality says we need to go to war, then we need to go to war, regardless of the Constitution. And the Constitution being the thing that says that Trump can't just do this, he has to have congressional approval. which would, of course, never happen because Congress can't ever do anything. So what he's saying is, under our current system, we could not defend ourselves in this case. And so therefore, we need to just do it anyway. And then Pellegrino comes back and says, but the Constitution can be amended. Like, if you think that and we're having a problem, then you have to go through our process. Otherwise, we don't have the rule of law. And then the clip you played is his response to that, which is, yeah, okay, whatever, amend the Constitution. But it's like, but that would take a long time. We wouldn't be at war with Iran now.
Iran would have nukes first.
Well, regardless, I mean, like the bombing that took place last fall, I don't think that was necessary to declare war because it was really quick and it was just kind of an operation. And this, though, is a real war. And so it is different now.
But the way the War Powers Act works is he's going to have to get something within 60 days. I think he's hoping it'll be over within 60 days.
Well, the thing about this being a real war is, wars have battles, so in a real war, you wouldn't have just one battle and it's over. That's not usually how it happens. You have a series of battles, even going through years, and you take a break during winters and then you resume in the spring. And so it's all sorts of complex actions in a war. So we can be in a war since 1979. And it's just one battle every 10 years. And it just goes on because neither side has surrendered to the other and said, okay, I quit. It just goes on. And so, but the thing about Mark calling Razi a pragmatist is that Razi's saying he's not a pragmatist. And so they should have had that battle, figure out like which one's the pragmatist. But they're never going to do that because they don't really care. Mark doesn't really care. He's saying that you start with the Constitution, and then Razi's saying you start with reality. So
I don't know why that's in conflict. Like, you should look out at reality and go, okay, this is what's happening. What does the law say we can do about it? And
get this, Mark's response to Razi was that the Constitution is a reflection of reality. And so why is Mark beginning with a reflection of reality? Why doesn't he just begin with reality?
What does that mean? What does that mean? Oh, I see.
He's saying that
I think they're both wrong. I think they're both wrong. Like, there should be no problem here with respect to that.
I just wanted to bring up one quick thing about William's use of war, because, Trump has been careful not to use that term because that's when you need a declaration. And so he's referred to it as an action, or even though, for all intents and purposes with what's going on in the military, by your definition, you would probably still characterize it as a war.
20 years in Afghanistan wasn't a declared war. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It doesn't matter what language he uses. You can call it a war. You can call it a war. Congress can declare war. That's one of their powers. It doesn't mean that Trump can't send the military wherever he wants.
I think it does mean that, actually.
No, he's got to go to them for some authorization within 60 days.
The declare is an authorization. And if you use different words to get out of it, and everyone agrees that's fine, because Congress could impeach him for acting unilaterally in a way that they don't like. And that's how the balances work. So, but they don't, because they want it too. They actually want it, but they don't want to have to say they want it.
But the point of the Constitution is these different powers, and each branch checking the other. So Trump has command over the Army and Navy military forces, and he can send them wherever he wants and do whatever he wants, and Congress can check him on it. They can defund him.
But that isn't how it's supposed to work. That is not how it's supposed to work.
Well,
He's supposed to go to Congress, make his case. No, that isn't. If you read the articles, that is not what it says.
But since World War II,
it commands the Army and the military.
Yes, but I can read it to you if you want.
Korea and Vietnam were police actions, and then it was after that they came up with the War Powers Act that kind of, for all intents and purposes, now supersedes declarations, and they have to go to Congress within 60 days.
It says here, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11.
Sonny, go
Presidents
ahead.
depend on the Army and Navy before the War Powers Act to conduct wars against the Barbary pirates and other such things. So it's the president is in command of the Army and Navy. That's it. You know, he does.
Okay, here it is. It's Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 makes the president commander in chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states when called into actual service of the United States. This gives the president operational command and the ability to conduct military operations once Congress has authorized them.
No.
It does not include the power to initiate or decide on war.
William, can we play the clip of Liebowitz saying the same thing?
Yeah, because I have something to say about the when called into service clause.
All right. So in this next clip, Jim Valliant debated Michael Liebowitz on the war. Valliant's more in favor of it. And this is Liebowitz quoting the Constitution in the same way that Sonny did.
One of the reasons I oppose anarchy is because in order to be free, you have to have objective law knowable beforehand in order to act. When you put that power in the hands of one man, you have arbitrary authority. Article 1, Section 8 specifically says that the United States Congress can declare war. Article 2 says the President of the United States is Commander-in-Chief when the military is called into service. I refer to Article 1 to say who can call them into service.
Okay, so first let's make a distinction between Sonny reading the actual text of the Constitution versus Michael misparaphrasing it right there. Because he did not point out that the when called into service clause applies to the militia, the state militias. It comes after the state militias. And normally the militias are serving the individual states. So the reason why that when called into service clause is there is because they have to be called up to serve the United States of America and be under the authority of the president. The president can't command them unless he calls them into service or Congress calls them into service or the governors of each state put them into service of the United States. So the president is already commander of the Army and Navy because they are already commissioned to serve for the United States of America. He can send them wherever he wants. Now, Congress can defund the Army and Navy if they disagree with the president. They can immediately impeach him and remove him. They can do a lot of things if they disagree with what he does with the military. So I just wanted to point that out, that Liebowitz is misparaphrasing. He doesn't understand the Constitution. And this has been an issue with constitutional scholars for a while now. And they've debated it.
I mean,
well, the
I'm not a
president's
constitutional scholar.
commander-in-chief if there's no war.
I'm not a constitutional scholar, but every single time we have an action like this, there is opposition for that reason, that it's unconstitutional if Congress doesn't agree. Now, we do have a situation where we have a basically broken Congress. And so you could imagine a scenario where we are in direct and imminent danger on our shores and we can't get Congress to do anything. And, you know, but like either we have rule of law or we are in revolt against the nation.
Well, I think if I can jump in, one of the reasons why Congress has the power to declare war is because declaring war is something different than just going about doing war. If a whole country declares war, then they can be mobilized. You know, the president can then, you have a state of emergency and he can mobilize the whole nation for the purpose of conducting the war. So there are, I don't know what exactly the new powers would be, but, we declared war in World War II. And so then I think the president had more powers to control industries and like work with factories and things like that.
He made the car companies manufacture, war vehicles.
Yeah, because then it's a recognized state of national emergency and you have to have a lot more power in order to preserve the nation. And so, but that's not the case here where Trump is just conducting a war, on his own without without congressional approval, because he doesn't need it to conduct the war. He needs it to, do special things with the national resources. But he already has power of the military and the army, so he can send them wherever he wants.
Yeah. Well, in this next clip where Liebowitz is finishing up, he basically says that Trump can't be trusted, which Valliant, to his credit, quickly identifies.
The idea that Trump is playing 4D chess, laughable. I do not trust him. And what's coming down the pike, by the way, what do governments normally do in wartime? They restrict the liberties of their people at home. We've already seen Trump's willingness to do this when he's threatening media companies, when he's unleashing ICE on our cities, and when he is just talking about taking guns without due process. Imagine what he'll do if we are at a full-scale war. It is simply not clear that this is in America's interest. What we needed to do was get a declaration from Congress. Had that occurred, I might agree to the war, depending on what the plan was and what was said. We do not have that. With that, I turn it back over to my brother Jim for his 5 minutes. Maybe he doesn't need it. I don't know.
No, I do. I mean, you might have, had there been a declaration of war. See, I don't really think that's your fundamental objection. I think from what I'm detecting here, it's the fact that it's Mr. Trump doing this that is at least as much the issue.
Mr. Trump, not President Trump.
Well, that's minor. I mean, ultimately, he's zeroing in on the fact that, Liebowitz is still only a maybe if Congress approves it. Then he's still going to assess it himself. So he's not.
Of course he is. Well, why wouldn't he?
Declaration.
Why wouldn't he? I mean, I don't think there's a conflict there. I completely agreed with everything he said. But
it shows that the declaration is a.
Hang on. Part of the reason there's a process where the president goes to Congress is so that he can make his persuasive case. And there's debate, but we haven't had that. And we also don't really know how this ends. And that's true. That has not really fully been communicated. And so he's right. And of course, no matter what the government does, every citizen should think for themselves.
Absolutely. What I'm saying is that him saying that his problem is that it's not constitutional because there's not a declaration isn't that firm if he's still only a maybe.
He also said that it will harm our liberties here, like wars always do.
Yeah.
So he made that case as well.
That could have been argued during World War II as well. And that
100%.
Even with the declaration that it shouldn't have happened.
No, well, I think he's saying that is a cost of war. And so you have to weigh that.
But his main issue was that he didn't trust Trump, and Valliant zeroed in on that right away.
Is that his main issue, though? I mean, I don't know.
We do have to weigh the costs. And when you go to war, there are going to be problems, and one of them could be that some of your liberties are gone because you're at war.
That's right.
You can't expect you to have full-blown normal standard of living liberties when your country's at war.
Especially when you've imported maybe millions of Muslims. And some of those are potentially Iranian terrorists.
It could be that we need to institute some restrictions on certain populations. That may be the case.
Could we use this war? Okay, here's how I will before the war. We use it as an opportunity to deport and remigrate millions of Muslims.
A lot of people will want to go back as there are opportunities in the
after their countries are blown up.
Yeah,
they want to go back. You don't think we're going to get more refugees from the Gulf states that get attacked? And
from what I understand, there's not like a big refugee flow right now. A lot of people are just waiting for the order to get out onto the streets. If anyone's leaving, it's the mullahs.
It all depends on how long the war lasts and how much damage is done over there.
But that, to your point about Congress saying something, I mean, they're going to be consulted within 60 days. And now the pressure's on them in an election year. And I think Trump's going to give us a lot more of what his strategy is in that time, with
Well,
including Venezuela.
I think Valiant hit the nail on the head there, which he sometimes does. So you got to give him credit, that he pointed out that Michael has this severe case of TDS, and that it's just because of Trump that he's against the war. And it's clear from what Michael was saying that he wouldn't be for the war, even if Congress declared it, because he hates Trump and he doesn't trust Trump. So his main issue is not trusting Trump. He says that the idea that Trump is playing 4D chess is laughable. Well, Trump isn't the only one sitting in the war room. I mean, doesn't Michael recognize that Trump is surrounded by brilliant strategists and, military thinkers who have gone to West Point and, like just brilliant people who are coming up with these plans. And so you don't need Trump to be the 4D thinker. He's got 4D chess thinkers in the war room telling him what is best. And Trump just has to have the base of knowledge to understand when to listen to reason and when to, check something and who to listen to, who to ignore.
For the record, I am a Trump supporter.
Yes.
So my opposition to the war has nothing to do with that.
You're actually on the pole of trying to look at it objectively, and I think I am too, but I give Liebowitz a little bit of slack, at least from the perspective that I can admit that I'm, giving Trump the benefit of the doubt on this, that he knows what's going on, that it's going to be in America's best interest. And honestly, I mean, I would be much more concerned if Europe were behind this, if the mainstream media and the left were behind this. I think he's shaking up their whole new world order. And that's a lot of why they're against this, and even why the media is against it.
The fact that it's us and Israel, basically, is a good sign, in my opinion. It's a sign that the most reasonable people in the world are on the job, are dealing with the problem. And
I'll give you that point. I will give you that point.
But if we can, I mean, at some point I want to shift to Sonny's main objection, which I think is that it's not in our self-interest.
That's right.
So, I mean, I have a few things to say about that, but I'd like to hear her position.
Well, I mean, I'm not anti-war, but I do think that war is not something that we should do willy-nilly. I think it should be extremely thoughtful, and because people die. There are many costs just generally of war. People die. American soldiers die. We've had 3 terrorist attacks in response. So Americans have died here as a result of our attack. And so, I guess war should be thought of like, okay, what is our interest? It has to be United States interest. No more of this like winning the hearts and minds stuff. And I think it's pretty clear that we were persuaded by Israel rather than like, this is what we need to do now for the sake of the lives and the safety of the American people. That is not the case. I don't see that. I've not been persuaded that that is the case. Although I agree that it's an evil regime, that it's been taking pot shots at us for a long time. Perhaps the time to attack them was after 9/11. But we didn't do that. And we have to look at the context of our time right now. And I have a hard time looking at this faraway nation that doesn't have the capability to strike our nation except through migrant terrorist attack, that we are focused on bombing them over there rather than cleaning out the terrorists and the illegal immigrants, as well as the legal immigrants who are setting up enclaves here of Muslim dominance, which we've been hearing over and over about in Texas, especially. But I mean, even just the Somalis in Minnesota, they may not be Iranian, but it's kind of the same thing. They're moving in here, they're creating these enclaves, they're robbing us, taking that money and building mosques and little centers of power. And then they also seem to really often run for office, and they get a lot of their people in our city councils and in our state legislatures and then moving into Congress. So, and you see that in Europe. That is the European plan. That's what happened there. They're now, their entire city of London is completely Islamic. New York was just taken over by a Ugandan communist Muslim. I mean, like, we have problems here that we need attention to right now. And we're over there diddling around. It drives me crazy.
Is
And
it diddling, or is it cutting off the head of the snake?
is it? Is that the head of the snake? Is Iran?
It's one of them.
Not
It's kind of a
CARE.
hydra.
It's not CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood operating within the United States. I
It's
mean,
part of it.
Iran is
Iran
not.
works with Sunnis in some cases.
They're part of it, but they are not the head of the snake. They're just one part of it. And they're the part that is the most distant. You know, they're like way the hell over there. And Rubio and Mike Johnson both said right away that the reason that we're attacking now is because Israel said, we're going to attack now. And we decided that if they attack and we don't attack, that Iran was going to attack our bases and do a lot more damage in response to the Israeli attack. And so we had to get involved in order to mitigate the damage.
That could be part of the cover story for
Rubio and Mike Johnson both said that the day after the bombing. And now they're walking it back. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, what's real? You know, Caroline, who is the press secretary? Leavitt said that there was no imminent threat to the United States. She said that, and then she came out with a much longer piece later, giving all kinds of justifications. So that's self-interest. Let me move on to my next point. The other thing is, we've already covered that Congress has to declare war, but they haven't. We don't have a clear understanding. I believe we can win this war, but we have to have, how do we win it? Like, what's the end game? David Sachs, I think that's his name, the tech guy, the VC guy who works in the Trump administration. He had a really good clip that came out yesterday where he was just like, you know, we've done a lot of damage. Now would be a time to kind of off-ramp this, you know, because we've done a lot of damage. We've killed off the head of the regime, the top people. We could back off and mitigate the costs at this point, because winning the war against Iran,
losing. That would be showing there was
losing
no
what though? Like what? Like, what's the goal? What is the goal?
I think it's regime change, to get rid of the theocracy and maybe us having control of the Hormuz Straits.
So ground troops, right? I mean, regime change now is so necessary that we're going to go do a full-on $1 trillion year, 2 year, 3 year war.
We need maybe special forces, but not like
this is
infantry.
A major country. This is not Afghanistan.
But the people, the theocracy is unpopular. What they've been doing is they've been using drone attacks to take out the people who shoot street protesters, and now it's going to make them hesitant to come out when the protesters come out.
That's banking on a lot. And we don't, if regime change, total regime change, total victory, unconditional surrender is going to happen, it's going to be like a war with Japan. It's going to be like a World War II scenario. And the other one is this.
Can I step in before you move on to another point?
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to forget what to say. So a lot of what you were saying about, you know, we've taken losses and we should be thoughtful in our approach. You know, those are standard things for war, and I agree. We need to take into consideration all those factors. You know, if we were losing thousands and millions of people, that would be a problem, and we might need to surrender at that point. But I don't think we've been taking extreme losses. You know, we kind of expect a few people to die, and some of our casualties were accidents. So it could just be that, you know, this is the cost of the war we need to engage in. But also, you brought up a very important point, and you're saying that Iran, you agree Iran is an evil regime that's been taking pot shots at us, but they didn't present an imminent threat. And I want to counter that a little bit. I want to say that it doesn't need to be an imminent threat to be a real threat. And if it is a real threat to any aspect of our nation, we need to deal with it at some point. We can put it off for a certain period of time, but when are you the boiling frog in the kettle, and the water's rising to a boil, and eventually it'll be too late and you'll be paralyzed and then you'll be dead. So we have to address it before we're fried. We're the fried frog in the kettle, or boiled frog. So, and I refer to that as the boiling frog ethics. Just people who say we shouldn't act, and then suddenly it's too late.
We've basically been paying tribute to them, and Biden and Obama sent them pallets of cash.
Yeah, well, that's Democrats. We can't.
The reason why we need to act, let me finish my point, is that one of the other things that you were saying is that there's no clear goal. I do think there's a clear goal, and I think Trump has been stating it.
What do you think it is?
He's been saying over and over that Iran will not have a nuclear bomb. And he's saying we're attacking their capacity to build nuclear bombs. And it's not like Iraq, where we're saying they had these nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction. We're going in to get them. He's saying we're going to eliminate their ability to make them. And so that's the goal, is to go in and wipe out all the capacity to make nuclear bombs. Because Iran with a nuclear bomb is a major threat. That would be like the end.
Completely agree that Iran should not get a nuclear bomb. I supported the action last fall that bombed their facility. I do not believe that they are imminently about to have a bomb. I don't think that's true, and the administration has not said that. And the Israeli ambassador said yesterday on NBC that, I don't know, weeks, months, whatever, about when they would develop a bomb. And
did you hear the part where he was talking about their ballistic missiles and they're building up?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So the new reason, and by the way, these reasons are fluid, they change every day.
I don't the
new
them as
reason.
The main reasons.
The new reason is something about we have to prevent them from getting these short-range missiles that they can put on their naval vessels, so that they can then control their sea around their country, which then would allow them to do whatever they want within their country. So now it's short-range ballistic missiles that we have to stop them from getting. And it's just it's evolving constantly. And I agree.
Stories.
Well, I also agree that, just wiping out their entire military capacity is a goal, should be a goal, because they are
that is total defeat. That's total defeat. That's a full-blown multi-year multi-trillion-dollar war is what you're saying we need to do right now. Well, and I would ask you guys, who is a bigger threat to the United States, Iran or China? Direct threat.
This is the regionalization is China is part of this by him taking the Straits of Hormuz, and he also got to mock China. I know, but if he does, and he's definitely taken Iran's oil, and now he can turn off the spigot to them. So he is gaining leverage over China, and that is a big part of what this is. But he was basically mocking China, saying, "Come on over yourselves. Why don't you show your military off?" I mean, the Chinese weapons that the Iranians have been shown to be terribly ineffective. A big part of this was diminishing China on the world stage.
China does not do this hot war type of defeat. What they are doing is they're making us completely dependent on them economically, number one. Number two, they're sending over their Chinese scientists with funguses that decimate the Florida orange industry, which they did. They did that. They brought in a freaking fungus that destroyed the Florida orange industry. Is that not an act of war? I mean, what are we talking about in terms of okay, we got some pot shots from Iran, but Florida's orange industry was decimated by China last year.
So you're saying we need war with China?
I feel like better to spend okay, we only have so many resources. We only have so many troops. We only have so much money. We only have so much will, right? Political capital.
Yeah.
We only have so much time with Trump or the supermajority that we have right now.
It's all part of his calculation.
What should we be doing with that? All that. We
Well,
should be
Sonny,
spending it domestically, disconnecting from China, ridding our country of all of these illegal foreigners, ridding our country of legal residents who do not fit American values, such as these Muslims that are creating enclaves and so on, and dealing with our domestic issues like the domestic terrorism, like the fraud and the corruption, the SAVE Act, the elections. I mean,
He's doing all of it.
Well, Sonny, it sounds like you're in partial agreement with what Trump is doing against Iran, but you would rather he was focusing on domestic issues. But yeah, I think he can do both. He can do both at the same time. And the problem is, governors have most of the responsibility over the states. They still do. And Trump has limited power over the states and what can be done in the cities. So he can't do everything you want him to do in the cities. He needs help from the governors.
I know. And so what is he doing about the GOP and about the RNC and about the state GOPs? Where's the army of MAGA folks coming into states to help magify them rather than have these stale? But this is something he could be focusing on. You know, we only have so much time and effort and energy.
All the intel agencies are
there's an opportunity cost here. There's an opportunity cost.
I agree, but I'm part of it is I'm trusting him. He is getting these intel reports and what can be done and what should be done. They're tailored to the president. And I believe he is trying to make the moves that he can in case he loses Congress. There's no way he wants this thing to be a quagmire that's going to go to the midterms, or he'll get impeached over it because the Democrats will win. I think he's convinced himself that this can be quick and he's going to come out looking like a hero, and the Democrats are going to look like they're just focused on narrow interests. And
I appreciate what you're saying, but his judgment is not always sound in this way. And, you know, his operation vaccine thing that he kept pushing for years out, and the whole base is like, stop talking about the freaking MRA shot. And he's like, what? People love it. Like, he's not always right. And the second thing is, this is a man who's about to endorse Cornyn instead of Paxton in Texas.
Cornyn is only going to happen if the SAVE Act passes. We'll
see.
We say we want the SAVE Act passed. So,
it's not going to pass. We're not going to get the SAVE Act.
Paxton,
and he's going.
We're not going to get the SAVE Act is passed.
We're not going to get the SAVE Act, and Trump is going to endorse Cornyn.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you also have some trust issues with Trump. Which is understandable.
Of course. He's a real human being and he makes mistakes and he gets things wrong. So I'm just saying you can't just go, well, I trust Trump. You cannot do that.
But he's not the only one making these decisions, especially with prosecution of this war. He's not out there, deciding which targets to hit. I mean, he's telling the generals, generally do your thing over there and get it done.
I will say that foreign policy, Trump has always been very good. He, in his first term, his foreign policy was excellent. He campaigned on no new wars. In his first term, he achieved that. In this term, he's not achieved that. And that's disappointing. It's not a new war. If the goal is complete destruction of Iran's ability to have any military at all, or control the Strait of Hormuz, or have short-term ballistic missiles, this is a war.
This is a major battle in the long ongoing war that's been going on for decades.
I feel
I
like
want
that's
to.
made up. Come
I
on.
just want to get back to the issue of how much influence Israel has in the strategy, because Yaron Brook, of chairman of the Ayn Rand Institute, who does his own show, um, he has been one of those more in Razi or Valliant's camp where he just appreciates that Iran is being taken out. And but one of his refrains is that Trump has no strategy. And here's a clip from March 11th where he's expanding on that idea.
I'll give Trump credit. This war, they've embraced the Israelis. They are partners. They are doing this together. They're not shying away. They're not succumbing to the Arab world being upset that Israel is attacking a Muslim country. They're just, it's just a given. And that's a huge achievement. That is a massive achievement, and that's probably maybe the best thing coming out of this war. And indeed, I think Israel is much more strategic about this war than the United States is. So to the extent that their strategy, it's coming from the Israelis, not from the Americans.
He fucking hates America. I hate hearing him talk. Oh, the Israelis must be doing this because they're the smartest. And says the Israeli. Like, go back to Israel.
The worst thing is he ends up being a little bit of a straw man for people that hate Jews because he's like, Israel's just controlling this whole thing and they're controlling Trump with Epstein and everything else. And it's like, Yaron's like, hey, Israel's the one with the strategy.
I know.
And this came up in our Middle East episode as well, because it's like some people are like, Israel's starving people in Gaza. And it's like, no, they're not. And, Yaron's like, they should be starving people in Gaza.
What
Yeah.
I mean, what strategy exactly is he talking about? It's attacking Iran and taking out their factories and missile sites and barracks, and I mean this is basic military strategy. We're not doing something like super clever. I mean, obviously there's some thinking that has to go on, and like you have to do some research on where all these targets are and how to find them and use technology. But in terms of broad strategy, we're just conducting a war with an enemy and taking out their military and wiping out the regime. And, maybe Israel figured out how to take out the supreme leader there. But, when you're an ally with a nation, you coordinate. And I'm sure there's been a lot of coordination between our military leaders. So, yeah.
But did Israel tell him to do Cuba and Venezuela too? I mean, it just if Trump can't have a strategy, then someone has to. So he'll just credit Israel.
Sounds like his TDS is branched out to like America derangement syndrome.
Well, he's always had that though, because he always has been saying for years that immigrants are better Americans, that Americans are dumb, that cowboys are, stupid. And like he lived in Texas for a while and he just couldn't stand the people there. And he does not like Americans.
Well, the real kicker is this last clip where he originally said Trump had no strategy for the Straits of Hormuz, but since Trump has been telling other countries to come in and defend the straits with their own ships to the extent they're getting oil from there, Yaron is now convinced that Trump is using his strategy.
I mean, really surprisingly, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Maybe who knows? Some of what I say gets to the administration in various ways. But do you remember we talked about the Straits of Hormuz, and I did a whole show, and I proposed something that a lot of people thought, people criticized me for, and I think that proposal made its way to the Trump administration. I don't know how. I don't know what the exact mechanism, but I've got reason to believe that it made its way. I worry about taking credit for this because I don't know. I mean, other people could have had this idea. But that's almost the language I used it is, it might be shocking, but it might be possible. I mean, possible in a freakish kind of way that I don't think Trump is listening. No, I think somebody is listening. I know who the somebody is, who has the ear of the administration, who then takes what I say, puts it in a accessible format, and feeds it into certain people within the administration who have Trump's ear. And you can choose not to believe that that's the case, but I have reason to believe, I'm not certain, reason to believe that people in the administration have been influenced by what I've said about the Hormuz Strait.
I think what he's admitting is that he tells Israel what to do, and then Israel tells Trump what to do, since all the strategy comes from Israel.
He did this on the Malay episode we had, where he thought Malay was actually like plagiarizing ideas from Yaron. And this is actually something they do with open objectivists as well. It's like they decided to hate them in advance. So it's either they're misrepresenting Rand or they're plagiarizing her and taking her ideas without proper attribution.
He's either a narcissist or a Mossad agent. I don't know which one.
I don't think a Mossad agent would be saying, he's using my idea.
I'm going to go with narcissist.
Well, on one hand, I'm glad someone is listening to Yaron.
His one follower.
Yeah,
I'm just concerned that if everything
There's
goes
like one
well,
follower and Scott who listens to Yaron.
It's going to be, Yaron basically taking credit for the war if it's successful.
I don't want to take credit for anything, but
when I won the Iran
I can't be
war,
sure, but it was my language.
Yeah, God help us if we fail in the Strait of Hormuz, and then Yaron has to backtrack.
Then it's no
strategy. He'll say he never said it. I never said that. I never said we should do anything there.
But you could tell he's just itching to tell us who it was, or who, like.
I mean, it was Alex Epstein. He's in there on energy policy.
I doubt it's Alex.
Well, I doubt it's anyone. I think he's, saying the same general things that, other neocons or whoever is talking about in the various publications.
I think it's one of the billionaires that Yaron knows.
But I do think
Peter Thiel, maybe.
To the substance, I do think the Strait of Hormuz, part of Trump's strategy was to just let it be in chaos for a little bit and let oil go up and kind of force the other nations to realign based on the new circumstances on the ground. And it's still happening. And he's like unfolding this now on our agenda. It's like, let Iran do what they're going to do with the Strait of Hormuz, then we can decide how to counter.
Could be.
No, he said on TV he did not expect that.
I saw Trump say that he expected oil prices to be higher.
No, he said on television that he didn't expect them to close the strait.
I think that's possible. That was some of the, like them using different rationales for the war. He had to say that if he expected it, he should have done something, but he didn't. He wanted there to be that bit of chaos.
It's hard to speculate in these situations. I'd bet though that our military strategists thought of this as a possibility and they planned for it, which is why they're sending the Marines. They're probably going to take that island. They're going to knock out everything along the coast that could threaten them, or they're going to put installations there, to have rockets that can knock out their drones. So I think they're going to protect that island and they're going to take it.
Yeah, probably so. Well, so Sonny, what would success look like to you?
I mean, we're in it now, I guess, right?
Right.
I think David Sachs is probably right. I feel like we should pull out, but I don't think that's what's going to happen because I think William is right that the goal is to totally disable Iran forever. And I think that's going to be a long and expensive, both financially and in soldiers' lives. I think it's going to be a long haul here. So I'm an American. I want to win. I don't want to pull out and lose after, but we've already spent, what did I got somebody annualized the cost. If we continue to spend exactly what we've spent, it's going to be about $1 trillion by the end of 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing changed, it always costs a little bit more at the beginning, but I think Trump is very aware of the midterm calendars.
I don't like any of it. I wish we could find a way to get out now. I hope he does find an offer.
That would say
would it? I mean, what if he comes up with a goal? I mean, he comes up with a goal. He says, well, we destroyed their capacity for nukes for a long time, so now we're going to take a pause because we just have a lot of other pressing issues as a country, including recovering our economy from the last 25 years of war and COVID and the lockdowns and all of that. We have a lot of economic recovery to do. Americans are suffering. We're paying a lot in tax. They're printing a lot of money. They're continuing to print money. We have $1 trillion in fraud that's not cleaned up. And, if he were saying, I'm going to go in Iran and I'm going to smash this fraud and use that money to go into Iran, I might support it. But he isn't cleaning up the fraud. He is distracted. And he should
just
be. This
created a
war
fraud
is a big deal.
Force and
yes.
put Vance in charge of it.
Right. And we'll see. I hope that bears fruit. You're right. I forgot about that. So,
I think if I can jump in.
I don't know what I would like to see. I was against going into it right now. I think the timing is terrible.
I think the timing is actually good because we have an opportunity historically here with Trump and a willing military to really devastate an enemy that's been plaguing us for decades. And, when are we going to have this opportunity again? We may never have this opportunity if the Democrats get into power again. And even if we get a more tolerant Republican president who goes along with the deep state or the mainstream we had before, we're not going to even go to war with Iran anymore. We won't have battles like this. But with Trump, we have this opportunity. I think we need to take full advantage of it and let the military do what it's going to do until they absolutely lose favor with the American public and they can't sustain it anymore and they have to pull out. Even if we have a major battle that devastates Iran and then we have to pull out, that'll be better than doing nothing, because we will have devastated them and they'll get a message.
If this is such a good idea, why didn't Trump run on this? Why did he run on no new forever wars?
He may not have won.
I think one, after they did the 12-day war bombing and saw Iran's weak response, that may have been part of what created this plan to just go in and get rid of the regime and try to take control of the Hormuz Strait.
So the assumption is that they're weak.
Yes,
I think that's a dangerous assumption.
Well, Iran is very weak right now.
Why?
They don't have control of their own airspace. They don't have a navy, according to Trump.
Also, Russia's embroiled in the Ukraine war. China is having economic trouble. So it's just a good time for us to do this, to try to take out Iran. And even if we don't get rid of the religious state, I think it's worth it. As long as something doesn't devastatingly go wrong, like we don't lose a whole battleship or something. I think we need to take full advantage of this situation because we are enduring a lot of trouble. And it's not just the periodic terrorist attacks that we endure. It's the fact that our friends and allies are being attacked around the world. And, there's all these proxy wars going on with Hezbollah, and Israel's under a lot of intense pressure. So in order to just defend Western civilization itself, I think this is a great achievement on Trump's part. It's a statement that he's making in defense of Western civilization.
He's brought back a credible threat of deterrence. Say, hey, you don't want us to come over there and bomb you, right? Because I'll do that.
Display of our military dominance, and in some regard, if you favor Western civilization, you just have to applaud any attempt to, spread that around the world.
But what if it's weakening Western civilization? What if it's depleting our military? What if it's emboldening or enriching and emboldening the military industrial complex? What if we lose more freedoms like the Patriot Act? What if we spend so much money that our currency nosedives and our people can't afford anything? Like, how does this help us? I don't see this as NATO, the entire European continent is not involved. And it does not deal with the threat of China.
It does, because he is taking control of so much of China's oil that he can say to them, oh, you want to cut off our medical supplies under COVID? Or if you want to attack Taiwan, we're going to shut off the spigot.
Two more things, though. It also has, it's fractured MAGA. It's fractured the coalition.
That's
that
true,
elected Trump.
That was probably going to happen after the midterms.
That's anyway. A domestic issue. He's violating an actual campaign promise. And it has fractured MAGA because now anyone who opposes this war is being accused of being an anti-Semite and is being shoved to the side. And I don't like to see that. I mean, that really is, as a MAGA American, it's upsetting to me to see people on different sides on this issue of being so nasty. But it's a big issue, and people are tippy-toeing around now saying, if they don't like the war, how they say it, because they're worried about being accused of being an anti-Semite, which tells me this war is all about Israel and not, because why else would that have anything to do with it?
Calling you an anti-Semite, I don't think that's the case in a lot of instances.
Well, like I'm thinking about Tucker and some of not me specifically, but the bigger voices who come out against the war, Tom Woods, Tucker Carlson.
Tucker's in a different category to me. I honestly think part of the duplicity is Qatar. I honestly believe that he's being paid by Qatar.
He's not being paid. I mean, if he is, I heard that is a false propaganda rumor, that it's a PR firm that was paying him to do some things, and they had one of their sources of funding was Qatar. So, I mean,
he can sue me, and I actually used ChatGPT to trace it back to an August 20th, 2023, when both he and the Emir were in Hungary, and like 2 doors down, from verified reports. And it was right after that he became kind of
verified reports from where?
Of Tucker meeting with Orban and interviewing him and being at the, I think the Serbian embassy, something like that. But
well, I think on that point, I think it would help if the anti-war people differentiated themselves like you did, Sonny. Some are not against war in principle, but just against this war. So if that's the case, they should make that clear, and then we can deal with it. And also, if the people who are against this war can clearly state the reasons why they're against the war, that would help. And then also, on our side, when people are pro the war, we should be very careful about who we label this or that. I mean,
that's what I think too. Yeah, I think both sides could do a better job of that. But I see Tucker giving reasons for his, and one of his big reasons is that he supported the war in Iraq and he regrets it, and he feels the sense of regret for that. And so he doesn't want to support a new forever war that isn't a real, true, imminent threat to the shores of America. That's how he looks at it. And I don't know all of this. You know, the thing is that there's so much propaganda out there that if you don't see direct evidence of something, I just won't accept it. You know, like if I don't, the CIA is now going after Tucker, which creeps me out. Like, anyway, but if he's guilty, then I guess we'll see evidence of that.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, I agree with you that people could be much clearer. Like my opposition to the war is not oh, it seems like Israel is in charge. Although that does concern me, but I have 12 more reasons. And there are some things that you've said that I totally agree with. So it really is, to me, it's like an opportunity cost issue. I don't see the immediate self-interest. They themselves said it was triggered now because of Israel. So there is a case to be made that Israel is pressuring us to do this right now. And I think there are opportunity costs that are too high.
I see it as part of a bigger strategy, like I said at the beginning, with what he's doing with Venezuela and Cuba.
But he hasn't said that. He has not said that.
I understand, but his actions are showing it. And I
I
believe
supported the Venezuela action. But this, to me, I don't see it. I don't see how I see it only as a weakening because it's like the broken window thing.
But
we're smashing windows, and that's going to cost us.
In both cases, they decapitated the leader quickly. You know, if I have a concern, it's that, like in Venezuela, he's got that, you know, basically the vice president in charge of this provisional government. And some things must be going on behind the scenes where he has enough trust, even with her being Chavisista, that you know,
she's doing exactly as she's told right now.
China, yeah, exactly, and that she knows she can share a cell with Maduro if she doesn't like it.
But they're a tiny country. I mean, they're a tiny country in our hemisphere.
Something similar could happen in Iran, where there may be mullahs that are secretly moderate. Some of them could be moles, you know, giving Israel the locations of these people. And if we can get one of them in charge, I mean, a lot of people on the street even want, you know, Raza, the Shah's son, to take control of a transitional government. And we don't know. So it may not be as clean as like a new liberal regime. And we don't know how all that's going to play out. There could be unforeseen circumstances that are bad, but, you know, I'm going to give him a couple months to let it play out.
You know, why couldn't we give Iran to, like, if we're going to destroy them, we should give the country to another country that we trust, like Jordan or Saudi Arabia or something.
They want it to be the people that are, you know, a new government, and maybe Pahlavi is.
But why not have Jordan? Why not have Jordan run Iran? They've already got
basically already a CIA puppet state.
Well, with regard
aren't
to
they all? I mean,
with regard to Israel triggering our action, you know, that even if that's the case, it would just be another battle in the war, in my opinion. So I don't think it's a case that we're at war now because of Israel. If you go back
you think we've been at war for 50 years. But if you take that logic, we're at war with many countries for years. If by that logic, we're at war with a lot of different countries.
Well, it could be, but I don't think we're at war to the extent we're at war with Iran, with many countries.
China?
Well, we've never had much of a hot battle with China.
It's a Cold War like it was with the Soviets, and that's part of what's driving it.
But they just destroyed the Florida citrus economy. Is that not a pot shot of sorts? I mean, the Chinese do things differently, you know?
Yeah, and that's part of, I mean, Trump is doing things differently to counter them.
Flooding our country with opioids and, you know.
If the next time they try to put a virus in here, they're not going to be able to threaten us to shut off our medical supplies because Trump has something in his pocket now too. So, well, we talked about a lot of really good stuff today. William, I can tell you have some final thoughts you're chomping at the bit at. But any final thoughts from either of you?
Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first, Sonny?
You go ahead. You go
Okay.
ahead. Last word
Okay.
from William.
I'll just reiterate one of the points I think is important because it relates to Sonny's main criticism in that, there's no imminent threat. This was not in our self-interest. And I want to say that Ayn Rand wrote about the ethics of emergencies, and she didn't include war as an emergency, but I think there's a case to be made that it can be considered like a slow burn emergency if it's not declared. In this case, with Iran, it's not a declared war, so it's not a national emergency, but you can consider it a kind of disturbance or irritants or even emergent, like a slow burn emergency, like the boiling frog. And I think if you let it fester and you don't deal with it, eventually it'll become a full-blown emergency, which is life-threatening. So and this goes to your problem with Muslims not assimilating in places like Minneapolis. These Muslims are learning this radical ideology from various places, various nations where they come from, like Somalia or Iran. And so you get, the world, they spread out throughout the world and spread this radical ideology wherever they immigrate to. So I think if you go to places like Somalia or Iran and you try to deal with it there, then you're not going to have to deal with it as much here. And that's sort of what happened with communism. We had this Cold War with Soviet Union and they crumbled, and we're not having to deal with full-blown communism much anymore. We do have to deal with a sort of cultural, sort of wokish Marxism, but it's not full-blown communism anymore. It's very weakened. And so I think if we take down Iran, we take out the religious theocracy there, we'll get a similar situation where we'll have a more moderate or weakened Islam, and it won't be as much of a problem even here. So I just want to say that, we shouldn't accustom ourselves to the new normal of a slow burn emergency all the time, where we're always dealing with terrorism. We shouldn't get used to that and have that become the normal. We should recognize that we're living in an abnormal condition. Ever since communism and then radical Islam, it's not normal. And we should try to get back to a normal society, normal Western civilization, where we don't have to deal with these threats, even every decade, where we get rid of them. They're gone. And the only way to do that is to wipe out regimes like the one in Iran.
Great. Any follow-up, Sonny?
I think I've made my case.
Okay, yeah. I think it was a great show. Good final thought, William. We'll leave it open for the comments section. I'm sure there'll be some activity. Again, I'm Scott Schiff, along with William Swig and Sonny. This is the Ayn Rand Fan Club, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.